On Saturday, December the 10th, Barrie Wrestling presents Christmas Slamily Reunion. And joining me to preview the card, I have the voices of Barrie Wrestling. First, let's welcome back to the show. We have the one and only Mike Jeffries. Mike, how are you, sir?
Thank you for having me. I'm good. And I'm going to, right off the top, show off my little shirt here. 2 Beer Dimond Jim is a mean drunk. It's a throwback to our Mavericks Music Hall shows. And yeah, thanks for having me. It's going to be a great show next Saturday.
I can't wait for it. And we brought in the big guns for this one as well. Christmas time is one of my favorite shows of the year. And we got to bring in one of my favorite people making his debut on Count It Out, Dimond Jim. Jim, how are you, man?
I'm excellent. I'm so happy to be here, especially to correct the myth that you spread that there are voices of Barrie Wrestling. There's only one voice of Barrie Wrestling. That's Dimond Jim Lowe. We've got a great play-by-play guy in Mike Jeffries. We've got an incredible ring announcer in TCO, but there's only one true voice of Barrie Wrestling.
I love it. I love it. Absolutely. Mike, we got our work cut out for us to catch up to the legendary, most entertaining man in Barrie. Is that correct? 2 years running?
2 years running.
That's
2 years.
It.
It's hard to compete with 300 years of experience like Jim has.
I think it's because he's got a good in with Sharon, Lois, and Bram, I've heard.
I can confirm.
Well, I want to get right into this show here, guys. But before we get into the show, I want to talk about the year 2022 in Barrie Wrestling. And what a year that we had in Barrie Wrestling. Some incredible in-ring moments, some shocking moments behind the scenes with the Puff and Pretty Ricky stuff. Jim, let's start with you since you're making your debut. What are some moments that just stood out from you? Maybe moments, matches for Barrie Wrestling this year?
Well, I think more than anything, the rise, if you pardon the pun, of Taylor Rising has been the most impressive thing that's happened this year. We've seen a lot of great stars debut and work their way up through Barrie Wrestling over the past 8 years, but I don't know if anyone has had so much success in such a short amount of time as Taylor Rising. It's really been incredible to watch.
Yeah, especially watching her just recently win the women's championship there. Nova, who is an incredibly popular talent and a hometown person that was about a 50-50 crowd response with Taylor there. That just goes to show that her hard work has really earned the respect of that Barrie Wrestling faithful. Mike, what do you think about Taylor and what are some of your moments?
Yeah, Taylor's been great. I mean, her debut, she beat Alexia Nicole in one of the biggest upsets we've ever seen. She's won the Barrie Wrestling Women's Championship. She's undefeated. She's very talented and a very quick learner too. Like you can see just going from her debut to her most recent match, the growth that she's had has been terrific. For me, I think like Myung Jae Lee is a person that's really stood out and just put on incredible matches. For moments, Reverso winning the title. It's anything can happen in wrestling, and it was such a great, I don't want to say great moment. It was
because it was
not a good moment for Barrie Wrestling. No, it was not a great moment. It was just from a TV production, people need to watch it point of view. It was a great moment. Tragedy attracts eyes sometimes. And then his match with Alexia Nicole was one of the hardest matches I've ever had to watch or to call. And, Reverso is going to be back in December. We'll talk about that later though. But yeah, those are the moments that stood out to me.
Yeah, and make no mistake, Reverso is one of the most talented wrestlers we've ever seen in our company. It's unreal what he does in that ring, but he is not right. And when he defeated Gabriel Fuerza, it was I don't know if I've ever seen a wrestler so focused and so determined, not just to defeat his opponent, but to mess with his opponent's life. And then as Mike said, the next show, he took apart Alexia Nicole, and I'm not even sure that he acknowledged her existence. It was all about Fuerza, and it's just been stunning and disturbing to watch.
Yeah, he's definitely jumped out as someone that you need to be careful of, because it's like you said, he didn't notice Alexia. It was the obsession with Gabriel Fuerza it's kind of terrifying, in all honesty.
It is.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to look ahead to for 2023. Now, you guys both mentioned some of the newer talent we saw this year in Barrie Wrestling with Taylor and Reverso. Who do we think is poised to break out in the year 2023 and kind of do what Taylor did in 2022?
Well, I would be keeping an eye on Isaiah Cross. I mean, this is an absolutely massive man, cold-blooded, and everything he does is about money and reputation. It's a cliche to say someone's all business in the ring, but this guy, he hurts people and attacks people because he thinks it will get him further in wrestling. It will get him bigger paydays. And when you're, what is he, 6'6"? When you're that big, it's pretty hard to knock you off your pedestal. Definitely, I'd be keeping an eye on him. And then, I may be stepping on Mike's toes here, but Van Landen is just, a superstar on the verge of becoming a mega superstar in Barrie Wrestling. You could argue he's already the most popular wrestler we have, and he just needs that moment, just needs that match where the momentum's going his way and there's going to be gold around his waist.
Yeah, I think those are two great choices. Mike, did Jim take both the answers? He took both my answers. So
for anybody listening and not watching, I just went full Kermit arms when Jim mentioned Van Landen. No, I mean, Van Landen's a pretty obvious choice. I'll give a tag team choice because we saw the first time joining, but a reunion province-wide of Locked and Loaded at our last show with Mark Wheeler and Jesse V apparently joining forces. And yes, picking a former champion and the All-Ontario Cup winner to do some big things next year is, kind of an easy bet. It's like betting against the Leafs in the first round. But I'm really, really interested to see what that team does. And also, I'm curious to see what Kyle Boone and Shiloh do in 2023 because he's still got the Kempen Fest Cup, which is a title shot anytime he wants. And he hasn't been on the winning end of a lot of matches, but we'll see what happens going forward. They seem to be cooking something up. Yeah. And I'm really curious to see what he can do.
That Shiloh's definitely got a master plan brewing. She is evil to the bone and dangerous as well. I will throw a name out there that I hope that we're going to see a little bit more of in Barrie Wrestling next year. And that's the tag team of Millennial Falcon. They were really impressive in their appearances this year. And as the tag team guy, I love tag team wrestling. I think that those guys, if given the right opportunity and the right platform and can stay healthy, are definitely people to keep an eye out of.
So TCO, I'm going to turn this around on you because I'm fascinated. Knowing you're a tag team guy, what is the tag team match you'd love to see in Barrie Wrestling in 2023?
Oh, you know what? I think I'm going to stick with Falcon and I'd like to see them in there with Flight or Fight.
Oh.
Title or no title. Now, this is like, I feel like I'm a little bit cursed here with Flight or Fight. I have never gotten to see them in person live before. I've definitely seen the highlights. I've definitely seen them on IWTV, but I've never gotten that experience. I think there was 4 times I had the opportunity to see them this year. And unfortunately, due to one reason or another, I just never got to see it happen if I had to work or there was an injury. And so that's the match. That's kind of like my dream match that I would like to see. So Sean Gibson, if you're listening to this, Flight or Fight.
Oh, I guarantee he is.
Yeah.
You know that empty-headed fuck. He's just waiting for this podcast to drop.
I'm just hoping he's not too mad at me because my Bengals beat up his Steelers a couple weeks ago. So yes, Sean Gibson, please, Flight or Fight versus Millennial Falcon. 2 out of 3 falls if you want to get real crazy, because that's just fantastic stuff. But that's my Barrie Wrestling dream match for next year.
So we've only ever had a handful of 2 out of 3 falls matches in Barrie Wrestling. In fact, I can only think of 2. One of them was, of course, Alexia Nicole versus Jody Threat, an absolute incredible banger that wound up being our last match for a long time due to COVID. But then you mentioned Fight or Flight. We had a main event match between Von Vertigo and Gabriel Fuerza, which was the best 2 out of 3 falls. I think it was a June show, either 2015 or I think it was 2015. And if you can find that online, go and watch it. Unbelievable match.
Yeah, those guys are incredible. And just recently this year too, Holden Albright and Van Landen had a fantastic 2 out of 3 falls as well. which we're definitely going to talk about Holden and Van Lannon a little bit later, because I've got some questions for Holden that I want to know. And, we're going to hopefully find out some answers in December here next Saturday. But let's get into the card. Let's jump right into it here. We mentioned the name Kyle Boone earlier. He's going to be going one-on-one with the man from Intercourse, Pennsylvania, Bobby Orlando. Jim, have you been to Intercourse, Pennsylvania before?
I actually have.
You haven't
back from a ball hockey tournament, if you can believe it.
I figure you might have a summer residence there, but
it's on the to-do list.
I've heard it's a hell of a party there, and if you've ever seen Bobby Orlando before, you know that must be the case. A little bit of egg on the face for Shiloh and Mr. Boone at the last show there, where Bobby Jr. actually scored the pin over Shiloh. Mike Jeffries, did you ever think that you would be calling Bobby Jr. getting a pin on Shiloh?
No, I don't think I ever expected to call a goat pinning a woman. But that might have been the loudest pop we've had in a very long time. Actually, just circle back. For those of you who have IWTV, and if you don't, sign up, watch that 10-person, 12-person, whatever it turned into, 12-creature elimination match. It might have been the loudest crowd we've ever had. Jim and I were having trouble hearing ourselves on commentary over the noise of the crowd. And I've never seen a group of people more hated than Team Relentless in that matchup. But no, that was quite the start to the match, and a big win for Bobby Jr. to start his career.
Yeah, it really was something. Our ring announcer didn't show up that night, so I had to do double duty. And I've introduced a lot of big matches over the past 8 years. The way the crowd reacted when Team Relentless came out is easily one of the loudest chorus of boos I have ever heard. And then the complete reversal when Bobby Jr. pinned Shiloh, like, honestly, it was unreal. But then, we got to be serious here. The unprovoked and vicious assault on Bobby Jr. by Kyle Boone, it was horrific. And we still haven't received a medical update on the GOAT, but no doubt Bobby will be seeking revenge against Kyle Boone, because it was heinous. It was an absolute travesty.
We like to have our fun at Kyle and Shiloh's expense, but let's call a spade here. He's the Kempenfest Cup champion for a reason. He can get it done in the ring when he needs to. Shiloh's that wild card outside. I'm really interested with this Kempenfest Cup now, and we're going to talk about Reverso and his rules a little bit later here, but I don't think Kyle's eligible to cash in on Reverso anymore, because he wasn't a championship match last year. He was in that 6-man scramble. So I'm not sure what his plans are with this cup, if he can cash in, if he can't cash in. We're going to have to talk to Sean Gibson about that. But, all the other champions, because it's good for any championship, right? So all the other champions need to be on high alert here. Jay Lee's got a big match. The tag champions are there. Who knows? Maybe him and Shiloh are scheming to become a tag team champion. The unexpectedness and the brain power that they have together makes that a very dangerous situation for everybody in Barrie Wrestling.
And I just want to add, I did talk to Shiloh. She can use the cup if Kyle lets her, or if, she takes it from him, for the women's championship as well. So that's also a possibility.
Dangerous stuff. And those are probably the two of the least people that I would want to have that cup if I was a champion in Barrie Wrestling.
Absolutely. And I can confirm that because of the match to match contract that Reverso is operating under, he can't have the Kempenfest Cup cashed in on him. And that would be a really great way to get rid of someone who's causing a lot of headaches for Barrie Wrestling. But you have to play the hand that's dealt to you. But I would really like to see Kyle Boone find a tag team partner and enter the tag team ranks, because he really delivers every time he's in the ring. He's fast, he's exciting, but I think he just needs some, that power element, and to see him team up with a Holden Albright or an Isaiah Cross or someone like that. I mean, man, those would be some exciting matches against Fight or Flight or Puff and Ricky if they win the titles.
Which I don't know if Boone is not cheap enough to afford Isaiah Cross. So yeah, he feels like he might be a bit of a penny pincher.
Fair.
You mentioned the word headache with Reverso, and we'll get into him a little bit later. And I want to talk about what could be maybe the best kind of headache of all time, and that's the return of Anton Alexia. The guy is so exciting. He is so fun. He's probably a huge scare for Sean Gibson every time he's in the ring, because you never know what he's going to do. Don't trust the eggnog whenever Anton's around. I think that's safe to say, but I'm definitely going to be taking I'll definitely be getting a big cup of it for sure. But how excited are we for Anton coming back? Mike, let's start with you on this one.
Well, first off, you mentioned Sean. Shelley, the no-nonsense pixie, the sound maestro of Barrie Wrestling, has threatened to kill Anton a couple of times for scaring her to death with some of the stuff he does. I just like Barrie Wrestling's better when Anton's there.
Yep.
He's a great guy to have around. He's nuts, but a lot of them are. And the crowd loves him. And it was, you know what, the first time I ring announced for Barrie Wrestling was actually when Anton had his injury, his concussion, when he unfortunately fell out of the ring. And for him to come back from that and to come back from everything, his shoulder injuries and all that, it's going to be great to see him. And I know the crowd's going to show him the love he deserves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jim, what do you think about Anton coming back? The wild card that is Anton.
This will be one of those few times that I agree with everything that Mike says, because Anton is a legitimately great young man, but also, to use an insider term, he lives the gimmick. He loves to party for real. He is a jet setter. The way he dresses in the ring, flashy and expensive. That's the way he dresses outside of the ring as well. What you see is what you get, but he's also just a great guy. So, so happy to see him overcome more issues, more challenges, and get back to, what I think is one of his second homes in Barrie Wrestling.
Yeah, Anton, he kind of terrifies me in all the right ways, because it's like I want to go out for drinks with you one night, Anton, but I think I'd be terrified to do so. But I love Anton. A little personal story: the very first show that Mike and myself came to with Barrie Wrestling for Count It Out here, we met Anton and introduced ourselves, and he's like, "No, man, I'm a hugger. Come here." Big hug, made us feel incredibly welcome right away. So I cannot wait personally to see Anton back inside that Barrie Wrestling ring. Another thing,
something we've talked about. Sorry, we've discussed the idea of a 3-man booth if we ever go back to Mavericks, with myself, Jim, and Anton, with Jim and Anton going shot for shot as the show goes along, just to see what happens.
I don't drink vodka though. I'm a beer and whiskey guy. So
an IPA.
I want to see 2 drink Jim and Anton together in the booth. Now that would be something wild.
It wouldn't be PG, I'll tell you that.
Well, we've mentioned this name a couple times, and then let's get into his match here. Isaiah Cross, who I think we've all got pinned as a bright future in Barrie Wrestling, as we've discussed. He's going up against the guy who's got maybe the biggest heart that I've ever seen inside of a professional wrestling ring, Travis Moore. David versus Goliath comes to real life here. Travis had a very beautiful speech at the last show talking about his injuries. You could see the emotion in his face. He was having this beautiful moment. And Isaiah Cross comes in and does what Isaiah Cross does, and that's ruin beautiful moments for great people in Barrie Wrestling. I just hope that he is not taking Travis lightly, because, everyone always looks at Travis and they see he's not the tallest guy on the planet, but my God, that guy is one of the toughest guys in that Barrie Wrestling locker room. And I've seen enough people take him lightly and end up with their looking at the lights for that 1, 2, 3. Jim, what's the biggest mistake that Cross could make going into this match?
I think if Cross feels that he can just grind and pound more, and that he doesn't need more technical offense, he's going to get surprised, because you can beat the crap out of Travis Moore and he will just keep on getting back up. That doesn't mean he's unbeatable, because he's not. We've seen Travis win and lose in Barrie Wrestling, but Cross can't just come in and throw that big right and drop some big boots. It's going to take a lot more to beat Travis Moore.
And Mike, let's switch it to you. And what does Travis have to do to chop down the big oak tree?
Oh, I don't know. I really don't know. I know David
You do know, Mike. He's got to go for the knees. You got to take away that knees. Yeah,
a straight punch to the knee. I don't know. That's such a huge size difference. And Isaiah Cross has. I mean, he did get pinned by Van Landen in that tag match, but it's gonna be tough for Travis. I don't know if Travis is gonna be 100%. That was a vicious beating at our last show, and I think he's got to use a speed advantage. He's got to outthink Isaiah. I mean, Travis has a lot more experience in the ring. And I'm also a little bit curious to see about Isaiah Cross's endurance. You know, if the match goes a little bit longer, because we haven't seen him have a long match in Barrie Wrestling, especially in singles. So if the match goes a bit longer, I do wonder if Travis can wear him down, especially if, as Jim mentioned, he does attack the base.
Yeah.
But I would not be betting against Isaiah Cross.
Yeah, he's a tough one to bet against. I think for Travis, he's got to hit one of those famous headbutts that he does. And if he can land one of those, I think he's got a real shot, but he's got to chop the big tree down to get that headbutt going. So definitely got his work cut out for him, but never count out Travis Moore. He's incredible and just another one who's got a bright future in Barrie Wrestling as well. Let's talk about tag team championships here. We've got 3 title matches, 3 title matches that I'm aware of, at least for this next show here. Fight or Fight, given the rematch to Puff and Pretty Ricky. Von Vertigo is injured. We do know that he will not be competing at this show, unfortunately, and we want to give our best to Von Vertigo. What a year he's had. He's made us all so proud, whether it's having a thumbnail on the WWE Network for doing work with ICW over there, all the great work he's done in Europe in general this year, a couple trips he's been over, the Cruiserweight Championship he held and defended proudly over here. Vaughn, you make us all proud, man, and I'll throw the big V up for you. Much respect for Von Vertigo this year. So Fuerza, we don't know what he's going to do. Is this going to be a handicap match? Is he going to be allowed to sub somebody in? We're going to have to tune in and find that out. Controversy, though, surrounding the last match there. And you guys were in the building for it. I had to watch it on IWTV. I don't even really know how to ask the question here, but what's Puff and Ricky thinking going into this match? I know Ricky, very emotional after the match. He kind of wants to walk away. Jim, what do you think about this rematch and the pressure that maybe Ricky's putting on himself here?
Well, first, let's be clear. Ricky in particular, but Ricky and Puff were out wrestling Vertigo and Fuerza. Like, they were in control of that match. I don't know if I've ever seen Ricky perform at that level before. It was what you would call a wrestling classic. He was matching them move for move on the ground, in the air. It was something. Puff had a focus that, we never see from Puff. And as much as I like Fight or Flight, and, my history in wrestling is, starts with those two guys. I really think Puff and Ricky were poised to win that match before the lights went out. And I totally understand Ricky's disappointment, but I think he needs to go back and watch the tape. I think he needs to see how close he and Puff were. And, I think the same strategy applies, but who knows, we still don't know who it was that attacked them. Ricky was absolutely mugged outside of the ring right in front of us. We couldn't see much in the dark, but because Ricky was in front of us, we could see the beating that he took. Puff got shot in the face and by a glitter gun, just in case anyone who doesn't know. But still, it was enough. But yeah, like, if they get that opportunity again and can perform at that level, they will become champions. But who knows what's happening with these outside factors.
So, Mike, last year we got a Christmas miracle in the December show that brought Puff and Ricky back together. Do you think that we can see another Christmas miracle this year? Do you think that they can take the straps here?
It's definitely possible. I also, a rare moment, I'm going to agree with everything Jim said. I know.
And another Christmas miracle.
It is. And I did commentary with Puff and Pretty Ricky for their first 2 matches. And I was expecting, a lot of gags and laughs and a glitter gun. I didn't know what to expect. And they were taking it very seriously. Pretty Ricky did think it was morning and had just woken up. It was like 5 in the afternoon. But, Ricky lives Ricky's life.
Yeah.
But they wanted to take on Fight or Flight at their best. They wanted the best tag team in Barrie history, and they wanted to beat them in a wrestling match. And I think we've seen, there's the voicemail has come out. The video was released of Puff just trying to get a hold of Ricky. Puff is ready to go. Ricky, we don't know where his mind is at. And they have worked so hard, had so many obstacles thrown in their way. The 400 North tag team bracket for the tournament is, mathematicians are still trying to figure out how it worked.
That tournament should have been held in Rio de Janeiro, I think.
Some of the rounds were. It's got to be so hard to work that hard and get so close and then just have it taken from you, to be completely robbed in that moment. And none of us know who that hooded figure was. If anybody watch it on IWTV, if you recognize them, tweet, message Barrie Wrestling, let us know, because nobody in the locker room has any idea who that was. And you can't blame for his in Vertigo. You got to play the cards you're dealt. I don't even think they know what happened. They just took the win. But as for this match coming up, Jim, I don't know. Do you know anything about what's going on with Fight or Flight with Vertigo? Like what the plan is?
Vertigo says he will be there, and that's all we know. It wouldn't surprise me if, as Tyler suggested, that it's a handicap match and Fuerza takes them both on. I don't know that that's what Puff and Ricky want. They really seem sincere in their desire to prove themselves by beating the best team in Barrie Wrestling history. Maybe, who knows? We're speculating that Fuerza and Vertigo didn't know what was going to happen at the last match, but maybe the hooded figure could be Vertigo's replacement. I don't know. Yeah. I hope not, obviously, but nobody knows, other than the fact that Von Vertigo will be at Barrie Wrestling next Saturday, and he will fill us in on what is happening.
Yeah, and the last point I want to bring up about this match here, and I'll get you guys' take on it. You guys both mentioned a great point. I think that last month, Puff and Ricky caught them by surprise by out wrestling them. Do you think maybe this month they need to go back to what brought them to the dance? Maybe Fight or Flight will be ready for that wrestling this time, and maybe we need to see that silliness, those confetti cannons, and the wackiness that got them to where they are at this point. Maybe that's what it's going to take to get the belts. Gibson, he'll love it. Sean Gibson will love it.
Ooh,
I don't know. I talked to Ricky before the tag team match, and he loves entertaining. He loves putting on a show for the fans. Obviously Puff does as well, but I think inside it bothers him when people do not recognize that he is one of the most talented wrestlers in Ontario. And I think he really wants to prove something and still have the fun and still entertain. But if you've been sleeping on either of those guys, you don't understand professional wrestling, because both of them can go in the ring. And
I think, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I would sum it up with one word: is respect.
Yeah.
And I even go back to when they attacked Junior Benito and Hot Stepper, June, I can't remember, when we had the Fresh Air made their debut as a tag team. And, Puff and Ricky made the save when they were getting beat down by Millennial Falcon and Corey Stone.
Yep.
If I'm remembering correctly, yes. And then attacked Fresh Air afterwards. And that is, I think, the beginning of this, sending a message of they're to be respected. They're not, yes, they like to have fun. And yes, Puff will sometimes put a hot dog in somebody's mouth and then punch them in the face, or put a sharpshooter on somebody in the middle of an actual street in Barrie. These are things
That's a legitimate wrestling hold.
On a street that was not closed. It had cars.
I know. I was holding a microphone in his mouth. So.
And I won't get into the backstory behind that move, but it was a callback to something that had happened the night before. Anyways, they wanted to be respected, and they felt that Barrie Wrestling management, even the fans, were not fully respecting what they can do in the ring. So I think they're going to go into this match focused on winning the titles, but doing it in a way that proves that they are respected wrestlers. So you might see confetti cannons as a celebration. I'm a little bit concerned about what their celebration will be if they do win, because we do try to keep it PG. We are in a church, but I think it's going to be a wrestling match. And I think that's what they're going to do to try and win these titles.
Yeah.
Well, another man who's going to have to do a lot to take a title is Kevin Blackwood, making his return to Barrie Wrestling. So if I'm not mistaken, for the first time in 3 years, almost to the day. I think it's only a couple of days off. So he's got his shot at the 3-pistol champion, a guy who's got to be at the top of everybody's list for possible wrestler of the year this year, Myung Jae Lee. I am so excited to see this match. I've never had the pleasure to see Blackwood wrestle live. Jae Lee is on fire since winning the championship here. What are we expecting out of this match, Jim? Let's start with you on this one.
Yeah, well, Blackwood live is just such a so glad you're going to be there, Tyler, because he's just unbelievable to watch in the ring. One thing that's been consistent about Myung Jae Lee, both before and since winning the title, is he punches up. He finds talent who are known as being amongst the best, and he challenges them and he pushes them. He doesn't always win. He's been on a great win streak since he captured the title, but he doesn't always win. He always competes. He always pushes himself to the next level. And I don't know, out of all the amazing opponents he's had, I don't know if any of them have been able to push him the way that Blackwood will push him in that ring. We're obviously very late in the year, but it might be the best match we'll see in Barrie Wrestling in 2022.
Absolutely. Mike, what does Jae Lee have to do to head into 2023 as 3-pistol champion?
He's got to be ready for a fight. He's got to be ready for an absolute battle. I had the pleasure of sitting down with Myung Jae Lee before our last show. Little program we're going to be doing for either the Patreon or socials, where I just sit down with some of the guys and talk to them for a few minutes, get to know them better. And we talked about, training in Buffalo at Graphs Anonymous with Blackwood and Daniel Garcia and, Kevin Bennett and Puff and a lot of these guys. And I referred to it as strong style North America. These guys coming out of Buffalo all have a very, very particular style. And I asked, if training was just getting hit really hard for hours on end. And he said, yeah, pretty much. You just beat the crap out of each other. And that's what this match is going to be. And I mean, we've seen Kevin Blackwood battle like Josh Alexander in one of the best matches we've ever had in Barrie Wrestling, where it's just two guys pummeling each other. And we've seen Myung Jae Lee in matches like that too, like with Junior Benito and Lionel Knight. Eric. And we know he can take an absolute beating. Both these guys can. So all I know is it's going to be great. And it's going to be real tough for Myung Jae Lee. Blackwood's making a long trip to get here, and he wants to take the title with him. So we'll see. We know Blackwood has worn the title once. It was in a hotel room. We're not going to talk about that picture though.
Sean Gibson's favorite website.
But I'm so, you talk about a dream match. I'm so excited. And these two guys know each other so well. And it might be a case, it's a little bit of teacher versus student. Blackwood wasn't necessarily his trainer, but he was, one of the people helping him out. And to quote Shawn Michaels a little bit, did he teach? He might have taught Myung Jae Lee everything Myung Jae Lee knows, but he didn't teach him everything that Kevin Blackwood knows.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, the hardest part is I'm going to have to remember that I'm going to have to announce the winner of this match, because I'm going to be so invested watching it that I'm going to have to snap myself back out and say somebody won the match. I'm very excited for this. I'm going to go on record here and say that I think this will be the match of the night. And I think that that's pressure that those guys can both live up to, because this is a stacked card from top to bottom. A match another big match. It's going to have a lot of emotion behind it. It's going to be the last run for the Dirty Vets in Barrie Wrestling, going up against longtime rivals Deadly Venom. This is it. TID is calling it a career, the notorious TID, and what a career he's had. This is going to be his last match in Barrie Wrestling. I can't imagine that they're not going to want to go out with a win here. Mike, actually, no, sorry, Jim. I think this one might be a little bit better suited for you. Talk about just the history of the Dirty Vets and Barrie Wrestling and just what they mean to that company.
Yeah, well, we talked about Fight or Flight being the greatest or most decorated tag team in Barrie Wrestling, but the vets are the team that it was on their back that Barrie Wrestling was built. All those early shows, by far the people who brought the crowds in and, who put on great match after great match were the Dirty Vets. I honestly, I don't think Barrie Wrestling would have had a chance of getting to where it is now without the vets being such a critical part of our early history. Every time they do come back, and in recent years, it hasn't been that frequent as they've kind of wound down their career and done less. Every time they come back, it's a special event. It has a big fight feel. And, I can't say enough about how important they are to the history of Barrie Wrestling. I'm so glad that we're getting to see them on Tid's last ride. And they're not taking it easy. I guarantee you that if they called Sean Gibson up and said, Sean, give us an easy night. We'll come in, we'll sell some shirts and, beat a couple of students, he would have done that. That's not the way either of those guys roll. And, they have a long history with their opponents, as you said. And, I'll tell you, it's going to be a fight, an absolute fight. I don't know if the vets will go out on top. I sure hope they do.
Yeah, I think that's the moment we're all hoping for. But Tornado and Jake O'Reilly, two of the toughest and a great tag team in their own right. Mike, are the Dirty Vets going to ride off into the sunset with their heads held high, or they bit off a little bit too much and they can chew here?
I certainly hope so. I mean, I hope Sean Gibbs is okay with me sharing this, but this was the Dirty Vets' choice when when TID said, "Hey, this is it for me." Sean said, "Pick your match. What do you want to do?" And to Jim's point, they didn't say, "Oh, we want to beat up a couple of students," or Dimond and Cole or something like that. An easy match. It was, we want to go against guys that we've battled for most of our career. And I've never seen Jake O'Reilly live, so I don't fully know what to expect there. I have seen Tornado, who is nuts, so I have a pretty good idea of what to expect there. But the Dirty Vets, it's when you're going into your last ride and you got nothing, you don't hold anything back. There is no tomorrow. There's nothing to save. You're just going. And so I'd bet on them. But it's going to be a war. It's going to be a real tough match for him.
And yeah. TCO, I got to give you a warning, since you'll be doing the ring intros. The very first time that I stood in a ring with Jake O'Reilly, I was introducing his opponent, and he gave me a wet willy when I was. So protect your ears, my friend. Protect your ears.
I think I'm just not going to clean him out for the week before that, and I'll teach him a lesson. I think I'll have to teach him hard way. This match for me, from a personal standpoint, for me, first of all, I am just incredibly honored to just be such a tiny part of getting to announce these guys coming to the ring, and what an honor for me that is. I have the utmost respect for these guys. Tornado, TID, and Custom, Uncle Custom there. Those are guys that got me into the independent scene. When I was in high school watching these guys, they were my guys. I've never seen Jake in person either, with the exception of AEW. Actually, it was the first time I saw him in person live. But I've never got to meet Jake and speak to Jake. And I don't know if I want to after hearing about the Wet Willie stuff. I might be on guard on that one. But I think I can speak on behalf of all three of us when just what an honor it is for all of us to get to be a part of TID's last run here.
Absolutely.
Before we get into the main event here, really quickly, I just want to sidebar and I want to talk about Holden Albright and what's going on with Holden Albright and just kind of the disappointment that I have in Holden right now and some of his actions and the way that he's going about things. That the turning on Van Landen, hitting him with the chair after Landon's big win over Isaiah Cross, and then just absolutely disgusting actions last month, hitting Van Landen with a sledgehammer. I want answers from Holden Albright. I want to hear what is going on in his mind to do these heinous things to Van Landen. Mike, you were there the last show calling it. What's going on with Holden?
I would first off say, be careful what you wish for, because you might demand answers and then he'll be in the alley behind your restaurant at 11 o'clock at night.
Fair. I mean, I don't need to hear them face to face personally.
A nice letter will suffice.
Yes.
So I'm not going to defend Holden Albright, but it goes back to the tag match I had with Van Landen, where Van Landen refused to tag in. And then it goes to the elimination match we had where Van Landen blind tagged in on Holden Albright. And Holden Albright has been around Barrie Wrestling for, Jim, help me out, 5-6 years.
At least, yeah.
At least. My first ever show was actually when the Riot Makers broke up, when they lost the tag titles to Fight or Flight. And Van Landen's, new kid on the block. And he's very, very popular with the crowd. And I wonder if some of that might have gone to his head. And Holden Albright is not somebody I would ever, ever disrespect, especially because I know he hits people in the head with sledgehammers. So not defending Holden Albright, but it's an explanation as to maybe why he has done this. And we got to see a little bit of the softer side of Holden Albright, earlier this year. And now he's showing us the much, much harder side of Holden Albright. So I think that's the best explanation I can come up with, is that Van Landen's hubris got the best of him and Holden Albright looked to knock him down a peg. But as for this month, I haven't heard. Jim, have you heard anything about what's going on with those two this month?
Yeah, well, I've been told that they were both instructed not to show up. They're not suspended, but they've been asked to stay away from Barrie Wrestling for this month. I assume that Sean Gibson is hoping that with Christmas and New Year's and everything else, that some distance will calm things down and they can both come back in January. But like, it's actually a dangerous situation when you see Holden Albright in this state of mind. And we've seen it before, as Mike said, we have seen times where we see a softer and more thoughtful Holden Albright. He's a very smart man, but when that switch just flips, I don't think there's anyone who's more dangerous or more unpredictable in Barrie Wrestling. And I consider him a friend, but I think Gibson made the right call by not allowing him to come next week, because it puts Van Landen at risk. It puts our officials at risk. I mean, you got to stand in that ring, Tyler, like, puts you at risk. This is a guy who walks around with a wolf head on. He carries a chain with him. Like, he's not okay. He's dangerous and unpredictable.
Yeah, and my big worry too is they're Holden and I've gotten to know Van a little bit over the last couple months too. They're not known for being the greatest listeners. So I hope that they listen to Sean Gibson and stay at home and give it some time to cool down a little bit. I think Van Landen has just gotten under Holden's skin. He's pushed him to the limits in matches. They went even on the 2 out of 3 falls. They each have a win over each other. I think Holden's just had enough of him and is just trying to squash this little bug that is Van Landen. But Van Landen, the rise of Van Landen this year, I think he's definitely got championship gold in his future. I think that he is the most popular man in Barrie Wrestling. And I think he's trying to show Holden Albright and all the world that, hey, man, this is my time. And a win over Holden would do that. So very exciting stuff to watch, very nerve-wracking stuff to watch as well. I do feel very uncomfortable in some of these situations, especially watching that sledgehammer shot. That scared me watching that last month. So hopefully Van's okay. Let's get into the main event here as we get ready to wrap this up here. I'm really enjoying this. I could do this all day with you guys here, but I think the people probably want to get into the main event here. So Reverso, our Barrie Wrestling heavyweight champion, we've finally gotten his terms. They have been agreed upon here. I have them here. Gabriel Fuerza cannot get a title shot while Reverso is a champion. No one that has been a champion in the last year in Barrie can get a title shot. No one that has had a shot at the championship in the last year can get a title shot. Fuerza can still not put his hands on Reverso, or Mr. Fuerza will face suspension. Quite high demands here. Takes out a lot of challengers for Reverso. Very smart on his part. I do have a list here. Mark Wheeler, Alexia Nicole, Van Landen, Jesse B, Evan Greenaway, Kyle Boone, Kevin Bennett, John Atlas, Von Vertigo, Taylor Rising, Young Jay Lee, and Gabriel Fuerza all off the table here for Mr. Reverso. Very smart on his part, very disappointing from our standpoint to hear that. Mike, what are we thinking with these reversal rules here? This is ridiculous, right?
It's fascinating because it plays to, his state of mind, because it's never just been about winning the title. It's never been about beating Fuerza. It's about torturing Fuerza. And I don't even think it's about Barrie Wrestling. I think that's part of it. I think he has but if he'd had the chance to fight Fuerza at any other promotion, I think we'd be in that promotion being in the same boat. We were just the ones that, were unfortunately in that spot.
I've got to disagree.
Jim, you disagree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gabriel Fuerza is so associated with Barrie Wrestling. I mean, he's the Mr. Everything. He's won everything you can do in Barrie Wrestling, almost done it twice. He was in the first ever Barrie Wrestling matchup. There is something special. I mean, it's not fair to put on him as the franchise or the icon, but Gabriel Fuerza is really inseparable from Barrie Wrestling. And I think Reverso called this shot. I think he knew that he could chip away at not just Fuerza's mental state, not just his pocketbook from being out of the title picture, but actually at his legacy. I think it was very deliberate. And I think, and you're right, like he doesn't care about Sean Gibson or Barrie Wrestling as abstracts, but he knows anything he can do to screw with Barrie Wrestling screws with Fuerza's legacy. And, even though Fuerza can say he doesn't care about anything, he's just cool and detached, Gabriel Fuerza cares about Barrie Wrestling. And, I think the company is being attacked much the way Alexia Nicole, one of Fuerza's best friends in wrestling, was attacked and picked apart in that October match.
I think Reverso enjoys the mayhem that he's creating as well, because, I just listed off about 8 to 10 people there who are all not happy in that Barrie Wrestling locker room that they cannot get a world heavyweight championship while he's the champion. He's creating that tension in the locker room, that animosity, that anger. I'm sure Sean Gibson's feeling the pressure to find a challenger to get the belt off.
He doesn't even sit in the locker room, Tyler. Part of his demands in October and December is that he has his own locker room. He won't even sit with the other wrestlers.
I do hate to do this. I have to put Sean Gibson over. I think he found the perfect challenger in Jody Threat here.
I'd love to see what she can do to Reverso. And you're right, when you put in all those demands, like who's left? And Jody, we're very, very fortunate that she's available, because she's been very busy this year. She's had an incredible 2022. And she's a ride or die for Barrie Wrestling. She's one of the most important people in Barrie Wrestling's history. Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, are probably the most important women's wrestler we've had. And it gives a fight that the fans want to see too. Because you eliminate all those people. If Sean just wanted to book any old match, you could find, somebody from, wherever that's 0-7. And well, you haven't had a title shot, so here you go. I like Jody's chances, but I also don't know what Reverso is capable of. But I just quickly want to touch on the point you made, Tyler, about the descent. And the wrestler, like Sean Gibson, booked a championship match for a guy who did not have a contract with us. And you can put him over finding an opponent, but he made this bed. And yet Gabriel Fuerza is also at fault too. He pushed for this match. He wanted this match, trying to somehow make up to Reverso for some of the things Fuerza is not proud of, taking Reverso's mask. But Sean Gibson is, the buck stops with him. And he didn't have the foresight, whether it was confidence in Fuerza or not realizing Reverso is an actual psychopath, didn't have the foresight to put something in the contract where, hey, if you win this title, this is what happens next. Like, you become part of our roster. So the wrestlers aren't happy. And Reverso is, some people just want to watch the world burn. And
Yeah,
that's
I was actually just gonna say a reference. He reminds me of the Joker, his mind frame. So I'm glad you said that, because he just enjoys watching the misery that he's creating, and it's really easy to hate on him because I think he's angering all of us with what he's doing. But let's not take away from the talent that this man has. He is absolutely incredible to watch in the ring. And controversial may be the way that he beat Gabriel Fuerza. He still beat Gabriel Fuerza, and the way that he took apart Alexia Nicole, who's one of the best wrestlers in all of North America, it's scary to watch what this guy can do.
Alexia Nicole in 2022 beat some of the greatest wrestlers, not women's wrestlers, men's wrestlers, some of the greatest wrestlers we've ever had in Barrie Wrestling. And, Kevin Fest weekend, she rolled through everybody. She's an elite level wrestler, and Reverso picked her apart. But, you were giving some kudos to Gibson, and, even a stopped clock is right twice a day. And Gibson was right with us. He nailed it. Jody Threat still possesses the longest. Now she did look, but her undefeated record back when she started with Barrie Wrestling has not been matched to this day. She was a completely dominant champion in the women's division. She has an unbelievable win-loss record against male competitors. Pound for pound, she may be the strongest person in Barrie Wrestling. Obviously she doesn't have the size of a Jessie V or an Isaiah Cross, but man, what she can do physically in that ring is unreal. And, I agree with Mike. She would be an incredible Barrie Wrestling champion. And, I think Reverso will have to be at his absolute best to defend his title.
Absolutely. As we get a run-in from Lucy the Cat here with these serious points going on. I think Jody is on a roll right now. We saw her go toe-to-toe with Athena and AEW, and then there we go. Double cat run-in here. We got Lucy the Cat. There we go. Get in there, Lucy.
This is Rosemary. Sorry, continue.
And now we have our cat podcast. That's our side project that we'll be working on. We saw Jody Thread and Athena toe-to-toe in AEW. Jody's been wrestling all over North America this year, picking up wins over top talent everywhere. And Reverso's got to be kind of nervous going into this title defense. Maybe Sean Gibson's found the cure here. I used the word Christmas miracle a little bit earlier. I'll go back to the well on that one. Maybe he's found his Christmas miracle. He's a big Christmas guy, and Jody will get that title and bring it back home to Barrie with no more controversy. But in order for all of us to find that out, you're going to have to be in the building Saturday, December the 10th. Barrie Wrestling presents Christmas Slamily. Oh man, I gotta work. Slamily Reunion. I'll have that fixed by next week. That'll be me looking in the mirror all week practicing that one. Christmas Slamily Reunion. If you can't be there live, make sure to check it out on IWTV when it is released. Gentlemen, I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Thank you for joining us. Let the people know if there's any social media you guys want to plug or anything you guys want to say on the way out here.
Go ahead, Iron Mike.
Let me go first, because I know Dimond Jim always likes to close off the show. I'm on Twitter and occasionally on Instagram at Mike Jeffries PA. And also I'll plug Barrie. Make sure you follow Barrie Wrestling on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And when you're on IWTV, if you don't have an account, use the code 400North. Let Barrie Wrestling know you're supporting them.
Absolutely. Now, Jim, I usually like to take the show home by saying you've been counted out, but I think that it's only fitting that I let the man with the best catchphrase in the business take us home today. So, Jim, plug what you want to do, and please take us home.
Well, TCO, first, thanks for having us on. I know all three of us are really excited about next week's show. You can follow me on pretty much all social media, even new stuff like Hive at Dimond Jim Lowe. And, what can I say? I think there's a line that's appropriate here. Barrie Wrestling. What's the show name again?
Slamily.
God, I
Christmas Slamily Reunion.
Christmas Slamily Reunion. I actually did know. I just wanted to see Tyler trip over it again.
I would have happily.
Doors open at 5:30. Bell times at 5 p.m. Don't you dare miss it.